Why do I care about influence? I care about influence because businesses are built on people. People have all these weird bugs in the system. They act f***ing weird. Like, people act weird. They act crazy. They act at total odds from what they say they want.
To do the job, to live your life, and protect yourself from all of the things that may affect your life. There are people right now that have been told that they're worthless.
The next step is being a leader. You have to decide that you want to lead. You have to step forward. That means not being like everybody else in your school. I don't care if you're in 6th grade or you're in college right now. It's being a leader.
I've come to learn that there's a huge difference between failing and failure. Failing is like stubbing your toe. You know it happens. It's a verb, you know it's just something you do. But failure is a noun, it's an identity. It's a place of where you stay, and I failed a lot along the way, but I was never a failure because I kept trying, I kept doing it. I understood over time that my value wasn't representative of the things that worked or didn't work.
It's really bizarre. And one of the things, it's bizarre until you really get into the psychology of why it is. Once you understand why it is, then you can have some influence over it. So that really is the thing nobody talks about. And I'm always weirded out how nobody talks about emotion. Nobody wants to connect. Brene Brown talks about vulnerability. If you don't know Brene Brown, look her up. Dude, I will be the most vulnerable cat whenever, because it tells people I'm real. It gives you real insight into me as a human being. Now, why is that important? Because you know I wouldn't do it if it didn't move me towards my goals. So even vulnerability for me is a strategy. But the reason it works is because I'm opening myself up as a human being.
Connection regrets are, if only I'd reached out. And these are regrets about relationships, where you have a relationship, or you should have had a relationship, and it comes apart, usually through drifts, and you want to reach out, but you don't because you think it's going to be awkward and the other side's not going to care, so it drifts out even more. And then in some cases, it ends up being too late. And so these 4 regrets, to me, reveal what makes life worth living. What do we want out of life? We want a stable foundation. We want some stability. We want a chance to do something. We want a chance to learn and grow and lead a psychologically rich life.
You're connecting with people on a real level. It is just a truth. Human beings want to connect with authentic people. And the people they distrust the most are the ones that they can't understand their motives. When you don't understand someone's motives, I'll speak for myself. When I don't understand someone's motives, they freak me out. I can feel them trying to move me around the chessboard, and I don't know why. I don't mind when I feel someone moving me around the chessboard when I know why they're doing it, because then I can decide if I want to move or not. But if I don't know why, there's just that resistance to being moved, the unknown, the unease that causes. So once I fully accepted that I was dealing with humans, that they didn't want to feel me moving them around the chessboard, that they would respond. If I opened myself up to them, they would open themselves up to me, that they would open themselves up to each other, that we could really get some teamwork and some cohesion. If I hired for compassion, which is it just works in human societies. Humans are a social animal.
We want to do the right thing. I'm convinced that most of us want to do the right thing. And what else do we want? We want love. We want connection to other people. And that's what makes life worth living. In a weird way, regret also taught me about what makes a good life, because I had collected 16,000 regrets from people in 105 countries. And when they told me their regret, in a sense, they were also telling me about what made life worth living.
How do I turn that? Like, how do I take something that feels like it hurts and turn it into progress?
This is important. In some ways, it's central. Regret hurts. There's no question about that. But here's the thing. Regret also instructs, and you can't have one without the other. So if you avoid the pain, you don't get any of the learning. So what you have to do is be able to process that pain. And I think there's a way for us to do that, to take our regrets, use them as signals.
It was so frustrating because I was chasing an idea of value, not understanding that I was valued to begin with. A crumpled up 20 bill is still 20. Does it lose its value when it's beaten up? You have a right to what you're feeling. But just because you feel it doesn't mean it's real. I'm going to acknowledge that I don't like this, but I'm also going to acknowledge that I don't want to stay in this feeling, because if I already have to go through this diabetes, I already have to go through being different.
That they want to mount to anything. And they have allowed their emotions and their feelings to get disrupted. And ladies and gentlemen, you allow these things to happen because you're not protecting yourself. So you got to suit up. You got to put on that armor. You got to be a little bit more faithful. You have to understand that there is a purpose behind the purpose. And there is a greater power than you and I.
It's not being one of the guys. It's not being part of the pack. It's being different than other people. It's thinking different than other people. It's learning early in life that other people's approval, your friends, your buddies liking everything you do and believing in everything you do is not going to get you where you want in life. It's being a leader. It's being a visionary. It's being unique. It's stepping out. And when you're young, you're going to take criticism for it. You're going to take flack for being different, for not going with the flow, for not drinking with everybody or smoking weed with everybody. Stay away from those things when you're young. Stay away from them when you're old if you can. These are not the practices of people that win. Let everybody else smoke and do drugs and smoke weed and get in trouble and go down that path, and you lead. You step out, you be different, you be extraordinary, and you be proud of the fact that you're different.
I already have to go through feeling like a monster. I don't have to beat myself up in my own head. If you get a flat tire on the side of the road, you don't set your car on fire. You deal with the flat tire, but that's what I felt like I was doing, and a lot of people set the car on fire instead of addressing the main issue. They'd build upon it and make it worse. How can I become more than what's happened to me? How can I become more than the circumstance that I hate? But how can I not let the hate towards the circumstance?
No matter how you look at things, you can't do it alone, but you better put on that armor. Don't glorify yourself because you're only passing through. Suit up that armor and be about your business, because that's what we have to do. Don't take your life for granted. Don't feel that you cannot be touched, because you must know, keep that armor on, carry on, and live strong. And from the bottom of my heart, keep the faith, look up, and conduct your business. The question is, why do we fall?
The next thing is you got to work on your self-confidence, right? You got to become more confident. You know, when you're listening, it's something you don't have enough of. Self-confidence is the process, listen to me, of keeping the promises that you make to yourself. When you begin to make a promise, I'm going to get up at a certain time, or I'm going to clean my room, I'm going to get a certain grade, I'm going to study, I'm going to do something, deliver on the promise you make to yourself. Not what you promise your parents or you promise your friends, what you promise you. When you begin to stack what you promise yourself and you deliver on it, you begin to build a reputation with yourself that you can trust you, and that will serve you the rest of your life when you trust and you like you. That's self-confidence. Keep the promises you make to yourself. The next part is start to work on your self-worth, your identity, which is different than just your confidence. Self-worth means I deserve this. I'm worth this. And that comes from doing the hard work. That comes from being unique. It comes from noticing it when you're a leader, noticing it when you do things other people don't do, noticing it when you turn away from bullying somebody and you're the kind one, or you interrupt someone who's bullying and you stop it.
I can't control me. You know, sometimes we get addicted to this, like making everything beautiful, making everything like amazing, and sometimes we have to be real. Some situations do suck, they do, and we have to allow them to suck and not invalidate the fact that it does suck. My job is to not let my mind take over. And that's when I win and when I lose, and everything in between. You have a choice between what you think and what you do, and that choice is everything is everything.
You must understand that life has a way of taking you through perilous times, transitions and traumas, adversities, crises, good days and bad days. I don't care how clean you live and how righteous you are, you're going to have trouble sometime. Life has a way of being its own schoolmaster. Over a period of years, without any college classes, courses, books, or tapes, life will teach you something. You soon learn that life has its own pattern and it has its own rhythm. If you are a connoisseur of life, You observe all things. You learn from all people. You learn from all life's events. And after a while, you start drawing conclusions. When you start drawing conclusions, you draw them not for the benefit of judging other people, but you draw conclusions in the hopes that you might begin to understand what life is all about. Because after you lived a long time, you wise up a little bit. Just by virtue of staying here on the planet, of surviving good days and bad days, of seeing the sequence of life.
The world is not like the movies. The movies aren't real. They don't exist. But you do. And this life it's better than any movie there is. Go out into the world and actually feel it. Go feel joy and love and triumph and rapture and ecstasy and glory. Go feel those things. And with those feelings, there will be other feelings as well. There will be sorrow and pain and sadness and desolation and suffering. There'll be all those feelings too, but you know what? That's okay. That's okay. Take both sides. Feel all of it. That's what life is. Those feelings, those emotions, those highs and those lows, those are life.
Survival is necessary, but survival isn't living. The real problem with life is that at some point, you've got to start living it. Participation is required. This thing is not a spectator sport. You have got to get in the game and sweat it out. Yes, you'll get banged up. You'll get tossed around. You'll take some losses, but you'll also pick up some important wins. Wins that go a long way to developing who you are and your contribution to this world. I'm saying you've got to live as though it's an easy thing to do. As though there was some switch in your bedroom you can flip to get your real life started. Oh no. Life is easy. It is. Life is easy. It happens spontaneously. It happens all around you all the time. Living is hard. How many rules must you imprison yourself with before you get it? Before you see that the rules you write to protect yourself from the mistakes you made, to protect yourself from where you came from and what happened to you, can become your prison if you're not careful. And I believe that that's what happens to most people. They go through life making tiny edits to living. Little footnotes that read, "She said my teeth were crooked, so I won't smile with my whole face anymore. Because I got hurt last time, I won't trust again. I was so disappointed last time I tried, I won't let myself want again." You see what I'm getting at? These rules start early, and sometimes they're forced on you. So I know living is hard. Being stuck in anger, that's a rule for how you should respond to a particular situation. Being ravaged by anxiety, that's a rule for how you should react to uncertainty. Indecisiveness, procrastination, these are rules for how you should react to opportunity. Rules, 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 they're everywhere. Damn the rules and ask yourself, am I living?
Finally, you begin to understand, I've got to get down to the conclusion of the whole matter. I've got to understand what is going on. And I begin to understand that life operates in cycles. It operates in cycles and stages and seasons. It goes full circles. There are sequences of events, and it depends on what cycle of life you're in, what you're able to do. And if you don't understand cycles, you'll miss your blessing. You only have a certain time period to do anything, and you have to do it in time. You don't have time to spend years contemplating your next move. You've got to catch the cycle. You've got to do it in season. You can't do it in the winter of your life. You can't do it in the autumn of your life. You've got to know when it's time for you to do it, and you've got to flow with that cycle, because if you miss that turn, life has to go all the way around again before you get an opportunity to be that effective again. If you ever understand that, it will cause you to change how you deal with people. Because people and what they say will cause you to miss your season.
So make your own comic book. Make your life your own movie. Actually make it better than a movie. Not better because it's more adventurous or more romantic or more melodramatic. Make it better because it's real. So go out there, move toward the light, and live. It's real, so it is better. And you know what? Real comes with some downsides. Real comes with some darkness. But that's okay. It's okay because when you know the darkness, the light becomes even brighter.
Am I going through life with my whole self? Am I fully experiencing the moments, or am I watching them go by? Am I doing all I can with the opportunities that life is presenting me? Am I enjoying life, or am I managing it? Are my happiness and my joy conditional? If I died today, would my life have been fully used up? I'm not preaching, I'm just asking. Living isn't just about the adventurous and the exciting things you do, the things you post on Instagram. Living is about the hard places. It's also about the dark places. Living is about where it hurts, going to those places. It's about processing pain, changing attitudes. It's about lifting those blocks, obstructing your path to the experience called living. If you feel this, if your heart is starting to race, if your mind is starting to churn, that's you. That's you saying, yes, I want to live again. I want to start living again. Don't tell me about change. I know about change. I want to know specifically, what are you going to do? Who are you going to forgive? What are you going to let go of? When do you admit that you have a problem? When do you conclude that maybe it's you? When do you allow yourself to love and to be loved again? What I do know is that this is the only life I remember. This is the only life I have, and I intend to use it up. I'm going to experience fully what there is. That means the victories and the losses. That means the laughter and the tears, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's start living again.
I've resolved in my spirit, in my heart, that every experience is my education. So the good experiences and the bad experiences, I'm going to learn from that, and I'm going to discover the opportunity for me to grow and for me to get better. You have to make a decision that I will learn from this thing.
The freedom to find out what the truth is. That's why I won't call myself a truther, because I don't know what the truth is. I know what the truth isn't, which is pretty well everything they tell us. But what is the truth? And I'd like to know as much as anybody else, but the fact of the matter is we don't have the freedom to know. People can go out there and pretend that they're gurus and pretend that they know all this and know all that. Most of the time they don't. I mean, even when we discovered Tartaria and discovered the ancient civilization that exists right under our noses, right in all of our modern cities, just scattered in amongst it. You know, when we first discovered that, it made me realize that everything I thought about history is wrong. I mean, I knew history was wrong. I wrote a book about it. I wrote all this stuff, and I still agree with a lot of the stuff that's in the book. But so much of it was all based on the concept that the timeline was correct. It was all based on the concept that, you know, we'd actually built these cultures up from the ground up, and it was done by our societies, and Not that we moved in and simply took over real estate, but we did. That's all we did. So, the truth, whatever you think the truth is, seems to be subject to change. The truth seems to be based on what people believe the truth to be, which is why I've often said belief is the enemy of knowledge. You've got to establish the freedom to find out what the truth is, and don't allow yourself to believe anything. If you're going to believe in anything, believe in your own sovereignty, believe in your own freedom, believe in your own power to make change, your own power to have the idea that could change the world, no matter what your status in society, no matter whether you're rich or poor or physically able or not. You could still have the idea that could change the world, because everything that we see here is all based on ideas. It's just an idea.
All around the world, you see this recurring theme in different cultures, and it's described in different ways, but exactly the same in theme. We have a force, an expression of this Wetiko that takes a reptilian form. And the cultures around the world, again and again and again, when they're doing their creation myths, then some kind of reptilian, lizard-like, snake-like entities are described. So if you take the biblical version, you have Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And Adam and Eve are symbolic of, first of all, what humans were like before what became known as the fall. What the hell was the fall? The way I've seen this is that there was once not something that you'd call human. It was a state of consciousness that was experiencing a world, a frequency band that was like the one we're experiencing, but on a much higher level of awareness, consciousness, frequency. So things weren't happening in dense matter and low, slow frequencies. They were happening on a high frequency. Things were much more ethereal.
That there is a field of energy and that we have the language to use that field. This is an actual page out of the Gospel of Thomas. So we know that this ancient gospel actually existed. And you can see some of the letters. These are Greek letters. You can actually read if you know Greek, you can see some of the Greek letters right here. In the Gospel of Thomas, two very important keys. This was written right around 300 years after the time of Jesus. In this gospel, okay, so here's what we're doing. We've been in the Buddhist monasteries in Tibet, and they're telling us that feeling is the prayer, one. Two, that we must feel as if our prayers have already been answered. Okay, and now we're in an Egyptian monastery with the texts that used to be our tradition before they were edited. And we're going to look at the instructions that tell us how to do that. Okay if we do that? Is that good? Okay. Gospel of Thomas. If you have a copy of the Gospel of Thomas, this is verse 106, translated from the Nag Hammadi Library. And if you do not have a copy, it's in our books, and you can go to any library and pick this up. Verse 106. Look at what the Lost Gospel of Thomas says. It says, when you make the two, thought and emotion, one. So the Gospel of Thomas is talking about thought and emotion. It's saying when you make your thought and your emotion one, look at what happens. You will say to the mountain, mountain, move away, and the mountain will move away. Saying that when you can marry your thought and your emotion into one single potent force, that is when you have the power to speak. Let's go back to the Gospel of Thomas, another verse. Now this is verse 48. It says almost the same thing. This was so important that it was recorded at least 3 different times in the same gospel. Look at what this says. If the two make peace with each other in this one house. When Jesus is talking about the house or the temple, what is he talking about? What is he talking about? Precisely you. You are the house. You are the temple. If the two make peace with each other in this house, if thought and emotion become one, if they make peace with each other in this house, look what happens. they will say to the mountain, move away, and it will move away. He's telling us again in a completely different verse how powerful it is to marry thought and emotion. But they still haven't told us how. How do you do this? That's the next piece. In the early Christian Bible, your Bible today, there is a passage. How many have heard, ask and ye shall receive? Have you heard that before? Ask and ye shall receive. Have you heard that? I know people that ask and ask and ask and nothing happens. Because the asking is not done with the voice. The asking is not done, please, please bring this to my world. That's not asking. To ask, we must speak to the field, to the divine matrix in the language that the field recognizes. And a language that's meaningful. The field doesn't recognize our voice, it recognizes the power of our heart. Remember this morning, our heart, we have a feeling, creates electrical waves, magnetic waves. That's the language the field recognizes. So when you create the feeling in your heart as if your prayer is already answered, that creates the electrical and the magnetic waves that bring that answer to you. And you're going to see this in just a moment. Ask and ye shall receive. While we still have this passage in our text, in the Bible that you have today, the King James Version, John 16, 23, 24, what you have is the condensed version. You have the edited version. The edited version looks like this. This is the edited version. Whatsoever ye ask the Father in my name, he will give it to you. Hitherto have ye asked nothing in my name. Okay? Ask and ye shall receive, that your joy may be full. Okay, this is the edited version. This is so amazing to me because they took out the two sentences that tell us how to ask.
Ask and it shall be given you. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. For everyone that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened. That sounded pretty optimistic again. But again, I think it's a description of the structure of existential reality. And by which I mean, when I'm in my clinical practice and I observe, and this is also the case with my students, is let's say, people's lives aren't what they would like them to be. And so then you ask, why? Well, forget about tragedy and catastrophe, because that's self-evident, and we're not going to discuss that. Although the degree to which you bring about your own tragedy is always indeterminate. But I would never say that every terrible thing that is visited on a person is something they deserved. I think that that's a very dangerous presupposition, especially because everyone gets sick and everyone dies. But one of the main reasons that people don't get what they want is because they don't actually figure out what it is.
The grinder, you, the individual, the person that you are inside will determine the outcome, whatever you're going to do in your life. So you must continue to grind harder. You must continue to find a way and make a way out of no way. Don't wait for a handout. Don't wait for someone to tell you to do it. Do it because you need to do it. Do it because it must be done. There are going to be all kinds of challenges that we all must face. You cannot live in this world without a challenge. You cannot live in this world without a struggle. Because with every struggle that you have been through, it will help you to be stronger. But you cannot give up. Don't be afraid of the hard work. Don't be afraid to grind a little bit harder. Don't be afraid to sweat a little bit. It's okay, man. This ain't the time to be sitting up there feeling sorry. This ain't the time to be saying you don't have what it takes. So if you get some setbacks, embrace them. Sure, every day is not going to be a good day for you. Every day is not going to always happen for you. But it's always something happening. But you got to make it happen for the right reasons. For every day of your life, you must continue to believe in yourself. For every day of your life, you must have enough faith and understanding that it's up to you to make that difference count. So continue to grind. Grind with everything you got. Be strong every day of your life. No matter what comes your way, keep grinding.
Man, it's so tough, because I remember when I was young and I didn't have my father, right, in the household. And we became cool. And I remember I used to live my life and I had it was like a resentment toward him, right? Because I couldn't understand why he wasn't there early on. I just couldn't understand it, right? And when I would be home and we would experience certain things, and me and my cousins would be asleep on the floor, right? And there were certain questions and things at times that I wanted to ask my father, and because he wasn't in the household, I couldn't ask him. So it created a resentment until one day I just asked. We were together and, I just asked man, what happened? And he just shared with me what happened, right? I was young, your mother was young, right? I ended up losing my mother, right? And I was just scared, right? And when he told me this situation, I could understand it, right? And for most people, it's forgiveness is the hardest thing in the world. And when you see a son, when you see him coming up with his mother, or you see a father that's not present, a lot of times for me, I think now, man, what's that situation? And I want to understand it, right? Because I firmly believe, as tough as the situation is, my teacher said this to me. My teacher, who's my mentor, my 8th grade teacher. He said to me one day when I was in the 8th grade, because we was talking about fatherhood and stuff like that, and some of my friends, they were talking about their fathers. We were just having a man conversation. And one of my friends said, man, my father don't care about me. He don't want me, right? I'm in the world, I don't see him, right? And my teacher said to him, son, I don't think any man brings a kid into this world and don't think about him and don't love him and don't want him. And the kid was like, no, man, that's wrong, right? He was like, I'm a man, I'm a father, I'm a husband, right? And when he said it, at the time I was young and I was like, I don't know. But now that I'm a father, right? I got 2 kids, or I got 3 little sisters, right? And it's this thing inside of me that makes me think it was true. It was real. But situations and circumstances happen sometimes that we can't understand, and it leaves a mother in the household, or sometimes it leaves a father to be a single father, right? And when that happens, I think the village is important. It's like me, I got a level of accountability and responsibility with my son, right? If my son plays on a team, right, and his kids on that team, that their fathers are not present, I feel like I have a responsibility and obligation not to be their father, right, but to fill a void, to be a positive male figure in that kid's life as much as possible, and not just look at the kid and see him drowning and just be like, that's not my kid, I'll just let him drown, right? No, he's very much so my kid, right? Because God has put me here to be present in this kid's presence, so I'm gonna help him, right? And so it's just becoming a village around that mother or around that father to assist as much as possible to help that kid be shaped and molded in the right way with principles.
Because we live in a society where mediocrity is often rewarded. And you look down at the 22 men and he says something about basically you all detest mediocrity. And he goes on to talk about this mediocrity and shit. And I just sat back and I said, God, man, I want to be like these motherfuckers. I want to feel, because now I was projecting myself in those chairs. I want to, how do y'all feel like right now? And I want to feel like you do. You 22 men, I want to feel like that, man. I said, I'm tired of feeling the way I feel every day. I'm tired of how I feel. I'm tired of lying to myself, lying to people, and it being some piece of shit. And I always knew in the back of my mind, I could be something special, but I knew the work that was going to take was going to kill me. I was afraid of that. I was afraid of the brutality and the suffering I was going to have to endure. But I knew I could do something. But I'm like, I ain't trying to do that kind of work, man. I'm not trying to do that. So I chose the path of least resistance. So now my idea is, it became so haunting and daunting on me, myself. I said, I'm done. Fucking done. you're fighting. We all have two people. We all have two people. And I'm not saying you're crazy. We have the easy voice, which is that 20% telling yourself that I'm easy at 90% of my full potential, maybe 100% at that 20%. That's that voice that we all love. That's that very comfortable voice that's that mommy holding you saying it's going to be okay. Doesn't care how good you are, just loves you. Just loves you no matter how messed up you are in life. That's where you want to be at. So that's that one voice. This other voice that we walk very far away from is a voice saying, hey man, you ain't doing shit. So we try to get this voice out of our head completely. And we live over here in this land. So what you have to do first is turn up this voice over here. The voice saying things to you that aren't nice. That it's in our head saying, you know what, man, dude, you're not doing shit. You're not I mean, and it's not putting yourself down. People take this the wrong way in this new society. I'm not saying to put yourself down. I'm saying listen to the truth.
Losing, sometimes it will happen. But when you lose, make sure you lose the right way. Humble yourself when you lose. Don't be angry, because we gotta lose sometimes. Sometimes you may not understand why you're losing, but you will lose. You will fail. But if you're gonna fail the right way. If you're gonna lose the right way. Make sure they remember you. Make sure anything that's coming after you remembers you. They know that, man, I don't want to meet that person again. I don't want to have to fight that person again. I don't want to have to encounter that person again, because of the heart and the will that you had within yourself. Don't submit. Don't give up. Fight through it. Push through it. If you're going to lose the right way.
Good. So number one, listen to me. Don't write this down. It's not a principle. Listen quickly. I'll give you the first principle. Number one, this is not the principle. It's going to be a dog fight. I would love to tell you that on the road to success, everything is going to work out. It's not. It's going to be a dog fight. It's going to be a dog fight. For those of you watching my videos, on the road to success, I lost 5 aunts to cancer. It's a dog fight. In the midst of my business, I lost aunts. I had to go to funerals. We had to get on a plane. We had to drive. We had aunts that are close to my age who died, who didn't have insurance. We had to raise money. A dog fight. I had cousins shot in stores, execution style, shot back of the head twice. It's a dog fight. Like, you don't see that on YouTube. You don't see that on my TGI. It's a dog fight.
Do you understand what that means? Or you're gonna just give in? And then when you lose, you're feeling sorry for yourself. You feel that you're not worthy anymore. You feel like everybody's gonna talk about you. No, it's not about the people. It's about you. It's about understanding you. All my life, I've been pushing myself. All my life, I've been digging. All my life, I've been going. All my life, I've been thriving. And yes, I've been knocked down. Yes, I've been pushed aside. Yes, I've been rejected. But I kept going. I kept pushing. I kept believing in myself. I'm not saying that you got to be like me. You and me are two different people. You and me don't necessarily connect on everything. But you got to connect to something. You got to believe in something. You got to understand that it's going to take more grit and more will when it comes to what it is that you are seeking in your life.
My wife, 3 years ago, 7 legions found on her brain. It's a dog fight. It hasn't been easy. It's a dog fight. The road hadn't been success. Like, it's just a paved road, and like E.T. go this way. It's been rough. It's been crooked. It's been hard. But I've made up in my mind that I will get a reward for the pain that I go through. I will not stop in the middle of the process. I will not be defeated. I will not be destroyed. I will take everything that happens in my life and I will allow the pain to push me to greatness. You will not break me. You will not stop me. You will not defeat me. The only way I lose is if I quit. It's going to be a dogfight. And so if you're ready to quit, then don't get started. If you're ready to quit, don't get started. If you're looking for this easy path, don't get started. If you think they're not going to close the door on you and say no 1,000,000 times, don't get started. But every time they close the door, I just get excited. Why? Because I am not a no. I'm one yes away.
I know that it can be very, very frustrating to try and become disciplined. And I apologize that I haven't talked about the fact of what to do if you come from an undisciplined family or you have undisciplined parents. I haven't really talked about what to do in that situation, but there's a reason that I haven't talked about that before, and that is because you don't get discipline from your parents. You don't get discipline from your parents, from your grandparents, from your older brothers and sisters. You don't get discipline from an external source. You have to get it from you. That's what self-discipline is. You get it from yourself. You get it from you. So there's people from every possible background, from no parents to crazy parents to drug addicted parents to super squared away parents, and everywhere in between on that spectrum that are completely disciplined people. More disciplined than anyone I know.
I'm young, I'm one yes away. You can't keep telling me no forever. You can't keep denying me forever. This type of energy, this type of passion, you can't stop it. You can contain it for a while, but you cannot stop. This is life. And you can't defeat me. There is not, you don't have enough power. You don't have enough energy. You don't have enough strength to stop this. Contain it for a year, you might. 2 years, you might. You do not have hate, does not have enough energy to destroy love. You cannot destroy this. And so I'm telling you today, it's going to be a dogfight.
Every day I'm chasing something different. Every day the way I operate is totally different, and it's not about the product for me as much as it is about the process. And what I mean about the process saved my life. You see, my mother had me when she was 15 years old, right? Over on the east side of Atlanta, we came up in this neighborhood by the name of Kirkwood, drug dealer on every corner, gang members in the neighborhood, 2-bedroom home, 14 people, used to sleep on the floor. Got the opportunity to sleep in the bed one time out of the week. There was 6 of us in the bed, 3 at the foot, 3 at the head. And I came up with this dream pretty quick. I said, man, I want to go to the NFL because I had 8 uncles in that house, all 8 of which are still going in and out of prison. And so pretty quick, I said, man, I want to go to the NFL. So I went to my big cousin tomorrow one night. I said, man, listen, I want to go to the NFL. So we got to work for this thing. So the thing we're going to do every night, we're going to be patient. We're going to engage in consistent action. Every night, we're going to race light pole to light pole, no shoes. So every night we would get out in the street, race light pole to light pole. One night, a coach came down the street. He signed me and my cousins up for organized sports, right? First time being in organized sports. We get in organized sports. The thing was, after practice, everybody would leave to go home. And I always had to sit on the bench and wait on my mother because she worked that week.
It doesn't come from your parents. You don't inherit it. And there's another piece here. It's called ownership, right? It's called ownership. And if you want to blame other people for the problem, and I say this all the time, if you don't take ownership of the problem's not going to get solved. So if you blame your parents for not having raised you in a disciplined environment, you're not going to solve that problem. You're looking at your parents saying, if you would have done a better job being more disciplined for me, I would be more disciplined now. So that means you can't do anything. The fact of the matter is it's wrong. You actually can do something. And it doesn't matter how your parents raised you and brought you up. You can have the discipline you need to decide to do it. So as long as you're blaming other people, I mean, if you blame me for not discussing it, you blame me for having zero idea what that experience is like, you blame your parents for not raising you this way, as long as you're blaming other people, as long as you're counting on other people to give you discipline, as long as you do that, you will not have it.
And so when my mother would show up in the park, it would be about 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night. So I'm sitting there, and when my mother would pull up, she drove an old Buick Regal, hubcaps off the car, seats torn up, the car was all beat up. And she would pull up in the park 10:30 at night. I would jump off the bench. I would sprint over to my mother. I would say, Mom, if you don't mind, can you please sit back in your car and turn on your car lights? I have to do some extra drills. I have to go to the NFL so you would never have to work another day in your life. And I knew my mother was tired. And every night, my mother would sit back in that car and those car lights would hit that field when he had a 7-year-old kid doing backpedaling drills, running sprints, running laps, chasing his dream to go to the NFL. But just beyond those car lights, I could always connect with my mother's eyes. So it made me dig a little bit deeper. It made me push myself a little bit further. It made me work a little bit harder. It created a certain level of sweat equity in what I was doing. It created a certain level of pride in what I was doing. You know why people quit? People don't have pride in what they do. You know why people stop? They're selfish and it's just about them.